Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend's off to a good start. Browns getting ready, try to get a win against the Baltimore Ravens at home, a Ravens team that is playing very well. We know there are some changes. Jameis Winston starting quarterback for the injured Deshaun Watson. Ken Dorsey will be calling the plays, not Kevin Stefanski. Mike Florio from NBC's Pro Football Talk on the decision to make Ken Dorsey the play caller.
Ken Dorsey takes over the play calling duties for the Browns, and that's just weird to me. It's a different quarterback. Let's see what the head coach can do with this quarterback. And it also makes me wonder, and again, this is maybe they should put up the conspiracy Mike thing, like, was Stefanski directly involved in calling the plays for Watson as part of this effort to do everything they could to get the most out of Deshaun Watson? No, we don't want Ken Dorsey calling the plays. We want the coach calling the plays. We want the coach to prop up Deshaun Watson. We've got to prove that we were right to give everything up that we gave up to get Deshaun Watson, to give him the $230 million fully guaranteed contract. Now that that pressure's gone, we can go back to the normal role of coaches, offensive coordinator runs the offense. I don't know. But it's just an odd week. The week that Watson's out and Winston's in, all of a sudden the coach is giving up the play calling duties when it's a reset at the quarterback position. It just seems odd.
With that, let's welcome in Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, the Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, something doesn't add up, but I don't buy that, because if Ken Dorsey came in and you got Deshaun Watson right, then you were right. So it does not make sense to me that you changed when you did, and it also doesn't make sense to me that you waited until you were one in whatever and out of the playoffs to change the quarterback. So there's a whole lot of dysfunction again. There's that word going on with the Browns.
Yeah, man. Like I think when it came out and I first heard the news, I kind of had a similar reaction to Florio in terms of the timing being really odd to me, because, we overhauled this offensive coaching staff to try to put together this tailored offense for Deshaun Watson and utilize his strengths and hide his weaknesses. And Ken Dorsey was part of that. You brought him in because of the success he had with Josh Allen and Cam Newton. And you thought, hey, here's this quarterback whisperer, a guy that's used to running this exclusive shotgun stuff. We're going to bring him in. He's going to coach up Deshaun Watson. We're going to get the most out of him. And then, like Florio said, you waited until this week without Watson to make this change. I understand maybe they're trying to just evaluate Ken Dorsey and see if they really want to keep him around after this season, if they keep Kevin Stefanski. But it just, like, the first game without Watson and going to Winston, when Winston would thrive in Kevin Stefanski's old offense, changing the play caller for that, it does not make sense to me.
Yeah, none of it makes sense. And I'm guessing Kevin Stefanski was told, fix the penalties, and that might be the reason that he is not the play caller. Is he's trying to make sure that he fixes some of the issues that the team has had on a global perspective. There's a lot of them. Let's take a look at the injury report. Jedrick Wills will be out. He is ruled out, as is Jordan Hicks, Jerome Ford, Ronnie Hickman. Wyatt Teller, listed as questionable, just came off the IR. So again, Wills was out. He has not played well. So again, he has a lot of company on that offensive line, but he particularly has stood out as somebody who has been needing to improve dramatically.
I used to push back a little bit in the past few years about the effort issues that some people would call out, like, oh, he's loafing around, he's giving up on plays, because I thought sometimes people were exaggerating a little bit. That's not the case this year, man. Like, there has been such a lack of energy and effort from Jed that it's like, yeah, I'm surprised that Watson didn't get hurt sooner with some of the plays and free runners that were allowed to go free, screaming at him in the backfield with the way they were playing. And it seems like it's time to hang it up for 71 in Cleveland. And, the idea of maybe starting DeJuan and seeing what he can do. There's no reason to bring Jed Wills back after this season.
No, I would agree. So this is kind of interesting. There are some rumblings and reports coming out that the Browns are fed up with quarterback Jameis Winston. Rumblings of rift between team Winston. Interesting because of what happened last week where they made DTR the backup. and demoted Winston to third-team emergency quarterback. Thompson Robinson was promoted to QB2, told to be ready. Stefanski said the team removed the short yardage package for Winston during practice last week. That, along with DTR's practice performance, was why. There are also some rumors that 4th-and-1 jet sweep to Cedric Tillman was actually called by Winston in the huddle. So again, these are the kind of things that you start hearing and rumblings that you hear when you've won one game and you're approaching, the midway point of the season.
Yeah, this is not what good football teams do. These things don't happen with good, well-run organizations and teams that are figuring things out and putting good things out there on the field from a week-to-week basis. There's a rumor that part of why he fell out with New Orleans was the 4th and goal with like 2 seconds to go, and he audibled and threw a touchdown when they were up by so many points, and it made a bunch of people mad, and a lot of that. That's supposedly what happened before. So if he did it before, maybe I'm not surprised that he necessarily did it again. And maybe that has something to do with why they didn't pull Watson sooner and put Winston out there, because they maybe had some issues with him, on the practice field, which is kind of crazy because a lot of players seem to gravitate towards him and his leadership. And he was the one giving the pregame speeches. So it's really a lot of just, wow, that's weird going on in Berea right now.
And you certainly, you can't be doing that. If in fact he did audible out of that's, and if I'm Kevin Stefanski, that might be another reason that he stepped aside and said, "Can you call the offense for this guy? Because I'm kind of done with that." So we'll see. Biggest need for every NFL team entering Week 8 for the Browns. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Offensive line across the board. Browns are banged up on the offensive line. Jameis Winston's first start with the team. Pass catchers need to be better as well. Browns had the most drops in the league last year, already the second most drops through 7 games in 2024. You can pick an area of the offense and say it needs to be better, and you're going to be correct.
Yeah, you're not nitpicking if you're looking for those kind of issues with this organization right now. Yeah, it's, I've done a lot of work for the OBR on the upcoming draft class, my main focus over there. And that is what we are looking at in the draft community with this team is like, maybe you bring back a couple of starters, but how many of these guys are going to start for the Browns and be on the roster offensive line wise next year? And I don't, maybe Teller and Batonio, I'm not, but outside of that, you're not really sure. DeJuan Jones probably, but he's kind of been a backup in recent weeks. But it's just the things that I cannot understand, and this is probably a kind of shows you the fact that they're probably going to have a change at offensive line coach. These guys just can't communicate. They can't pick up stunts and twists and just basic concepts that an NFL offensive line should be able to pick up. And I know they haven't had a lot of continuity on that group with the injuries and tackles and guards just coming in and out of practice right now. But these guys aren't doing their jobs at the basic level, and it's just been a disaster.
All right, as you might imagine, plenty of voicemails. So let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I called in debating if Stefanski and Barry are the people to lead this team into another rebuild. And Dave, you countered with you should give them the benefit of the doubt because they only have really one bad season. But my retort is Stefanski has had 3 losing seasons out of 5. I know, the season's not done, but who has Barry drafted that is on a Hall of Fame trajectory? Maybe Joe is his best draft pick that has the potential, but that's about it. Don't get me wrong. I truly appreciate the stability that they both brought to this organization, but if 2 winning seasons and 3 playoff games in 5 years is good enough to warrant them staying for the next decade, then our bar is set extremely low. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Rico makes a valid point. Again, and you can talk about the quarterback injuries. Mayfield was injured. Watson was injured and hasn't played well. But if you are going to tell me that you want to move on from Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, that has to enter the conversation at this point. My concern is, are you going to get it right? I mean, really, are you? Are you going to get the head coach and the general? And I get, the response to that would have been, we don't have it right now. So they got us from one and whatever to mediocrity, but now we're back to one and whatever.
Yeah, and I was talking to Casey Kinnaman earlier today about this same topic, actually, and he brought up a really good point talking about one of the big issues if you do move on is, are you going to find somebody that can manipulate the cap the way Andrew Berry has? Because they're in a very precarious situation. And that's not, you can't use that one point as a reason to necessarily bring him back. But, like, are you going to, if you fire these guys and you move on, are you going to get your top choice, or are you going to end up like they did with Mike Pettin when he was like the 5th or 6th choice? Although I think Pettin was a decent coach, but it's just in kind of this really weird situation because of the Deshaun Watson contract. Is he going to play again? Barry keeps kicking this can down the road, and there's other GMs that have done it, but like, are you going to be able to find the guy to do it there? But I don't know that you can. I go back and forth on this, to be completely honest. Like, one day I may be ready to move on, one day I might. But ultimately, the question, you can't just use like, oh, well, but they're better as the reason to keep them. And you also can't keep them because you're afraid of what's out there, what you can get. Like, am I going to be able to get anybody any good? You can't keep them for that reason. But ultimately, I would be shocked if there aren't some sort of major changes.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against getting rid of them, and I'm not arguing to keep them. I'm kind of with you. If they decide they want to move on from them, I understand. It's been a mess. It's been a complete mess. But I am also concerned. What's coming? That is a concern.
Yeah.
Well, and along those lines, when a team is one and whatever, there is rumblings that Kevin Stefanski could be on his way out during the team's bye week, 10th week. Moneyball style of ownership group has seemed to find their scapegoat. Again, you've won one game, and your offense has been a disaster. You rebuilt this offense. So changes probably should be made.
And you've got a good opportunity to really get some clarity before that bye week, because there's a lot of talk about, well, how much of this is on the quarterback? How much of this was Deshaun Watson not being able to play? He was one of, if not the worst quarterback in football. Well, you've got a couple games now with Jameis Winston that we know is at least around average level NFL starter. So if they don't win another game going into the bye week, like, I'm not a big fan of firing a coach midseason just because I don't think it really helps. But at the same time, if there is no life from this team, I wouldn't do it. But like, would Jimmy Haslam do it? Yeah, he probably would. I mean, this is the most expensive offense in football, and they have yet to throw for 200 yards from one individual quarterback, and they have not scored 20 points through 7 weeks with an offensive-minded head coach. If you can't figure that out, I'm not sure you'll ever.
Yeah, and again, I understand the thought that you need to move on from him. And we used to point to M.J. Emerson. He's struggling. DeJuan Jones, I know he's coming off an injury. He's struggling. Now it is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Jed Wills, bad pick at number 10. Call it like it is. Jacob Roach and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s, $10 each. 10 times multipliers, 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. Really want the Browns to take down the Ravens this weekend and throw against their poor pass defense. On defense, when we're attacking them. A couple years ago, Miami played with no deep safety, brought everyone up close to the line of scrimmage, and shut down Baltimore's running game. Maybe wide receiver Zay Flowers changes that strategy. But if Denzel Ward can handle him, along with a blitzing defense, maybe we can make life difficult for Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, using almost like a 46 or Bear defense. Any chance Jim Schwartz would take this route? What do we have to lose? Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jacob, I understand the thought. Lamar Jackson's playing really well from the pocket now, though. He's kind of evolved into a guy that, he will beat you from the pocket now.
Yeah, any of the old antage that he's a running back, not a quarterback, that's long gone. He's long put that to rest. He's definitely able to win from the pocket as well as outside. And I think that one good thing they have going is that they've been able to shut down Derrick Henry when he was in Tennessee and stuff, so that, maybe that helps them a little bit. But man, Lamar, right now, he's got to be up there with the opportunity to get his back-to-back MVP. I mean, because he's just been as good as anybody in football right now, especially with a down year from Patrick Mahomes. I think one thing that's interesting is kind of what we've seen the last couple of weeks from Jim Schwartz. He's really differed his approach. We've seen a lot more zone coverage, which was just not something he did last year. And he's kind of shown a willingness to change some things up. So if he feels like something like that would be the way to go, I think he's open to the idea, when maybe in the past he wasn't so open to switching things up. And so I think they've got the personnel to play defense against them, as long as their defense isn't on the field all the time, because the offense is going 3 and out. But Lamar's being they might be the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Here's something else to look at. And Zach Jackson, Browns beat reporter, tweeted this out. Browns have 1,777 yards this season. The Ravens have rushed for 1,476 yards. I mean, right there. That's rough.
That is a Brown stat if I have ever seen one before. It's I saw that tweet earlier this morning, and I was like, I thought it said that the Browns had rushed for more than the Ravens. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way. And then I reread it, and I was like, oh no, that is not a good number. You just got to find some consistency. And, sometimes a new quarterback creates a spark. And I'm really intrigued by the fact that Ken Dorsey will be up in the booth calling plays, because I think that really that's what he did in Buffalo. So it was always a surprise that he didn't do it. But, if they can scheme some stuff up, they just have got to when there is a layup, they have got to make those layups, because right now they're making everything impossible on offense, and they're trying to get these big plays instead of just being smart and methodical and moving down the field. They have the personnel. I think they have the personnel to not be the worst offense in football. They're just not executing, and they don't know how to line up, which is just insane this late in the year.
All right, this from ESPN Week 8 previews. Stat to know, Lamar Jackson tied his single-game career-high 5 passing touchdowns against the Buccaneers Monday night. Needs 4 touchdowns to match the mark he set in 2019 for the most TDs ever over a 2-game span in franchise history. Bold prediction. Winston will be sacked at least 5 times, but he'll also throw 2 touchdowns. I betting Cleveland's inability to deal with the blitz wasn't only a Watson problem, but at the same time, the quarterback play should improve with Winston. I agree with both of those. I think Lamar Jackson's going to be a problem, and I think Winston will be an improvement.
One thing that I think is going to be really interesting with Winston is, towards especially the tail end of Watson before he got hurt, he didn't want to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. There was a lot of, crossing routes, dump offs, and things like that. Even when there were some chunk plays and some deeper throws, he wasn't making them. We know Jameis is not afraid to do that. We know he's going to push it vertically. We know there's not many throws that he's not going to think he can make. But I think Winston does a good job of getting the ball out of his hands when there isn't a deep play. And I think that's going to be if you want to neutralize the struggling offensive line, get the ball out of your quarterback's hands. And that's not what Watson was doing. And I think Winston can do a better job at that. But that's a good point. It wasn't just a Watson problem. We know that, and we're going to see how much of it was the offensive line versus the quarterback. And their offensive line is not picking up blitzes very well at all. So sending the house at Winston early and often is probably a good recipe.
All right, Albert Breer, this from the Rich Eisen Show, talks about the Browns at the trade deadline.
Zadarius Smith in Cleveland, somebody who, you look at him and he would be available.
But not Myles Garrett?
And then that's the thing, is like if you're another team, I don't think it's like a hang up the phone. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's a complete hang up the phone, but I think it would take the moon and the stars to go and get him. So I expect teams are going to be calling Cleveland on Myles Garrett. I expect teams are going to be calling Vegas on Max Crosby. Again, like this is, I hesitate to even call it a new generation of general manager because that's not what, it's been happening for a while now. Mm-hmm. But this generation of football executive is very aggressive, and is going to be aggressive in what they ask about. And so you see a team like Cleveland, and you call and you say, is Myles Garrett available? Is Denzel Ward available? So there are the guys that you would see on that roster that would normally be available. Maybe your Jack Conklins, your Zadarius Smith, but you also ask, well, would you consider moving on from a franchise level player like a Garrett? And I don't think they do it, but I think they will get phone calls on him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's kind of where you're at, though. The salary, you still have Deshaun Watson's salary. It's still going to be against the cap. So you're approaching cap hell, as they say.
Yeah, which is, especially if they switch general managers, it's going to be really interesting how they navigate it, because Andrew Berry's been really good at that aspect of it, whatever you want to say about the other stuff. But when that time comes, it's going to be interesting how whoever is here navigates it. I can't see a world where they trade Myles Garrett. It's just that level. That's a Hall of Fame player. Like, you don't move on from a Hall of Fame player. But like Zadarius Smith, I would be shocked if he's still here after the trade deadline. I thought the idea behind Jack Conklin and things like that, they're going to have to shed some salary. You don't want to move on from a cornerstone player. Denzel Ward's having the best year of his career quietly because the Browns have been so bad. But these guys are playing at a high level. What I really like that Breer said was, like, they're not going to immediately hang up the phone. I think I agree. I think they'll listen, but I don't think what they're going to ask for a player like that is anybody's going to be willing to give it up. But I mean, they're going to have to consider shedding some salary, especially if they don't plan on playing Watson, because they're going to pay him either way. So maybe stock up on some more picks. That's how you're going to navigate cap hell, is kind of mitigating these massive contracts with rookie contracts. But their phones are going to ring, and Barry's going to be talking to some people over the next coming weeks.
All right, before I let you go, we've got a minute or so left. I know you've done something on the top 5 quarterbacks for the Browns in the draft. Take us through a couple of names that you think they should pay attention to.
My highest riser right now is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. He's a guy, first-year starter, so didn't have a ton of opportunities in the past couple of years. Of course, with Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman down there, if they keep Kevin Stefanski, I think he's the perfect Kevin Stefanski quarterback. He's got a short memory. He's not afraid to take a hit in the pocket. He navigates the pocket really well. He can drop it in a bucket down the field. His decision-making can be erratic, to say the least, but he's got an arm that can make all the throws. I think he's very accurate passer. If you work on his footwork and some of those things, I think he's a fantastic leader. I think he can move. He does a really great job to avoid sacks. You may pressure Garrett Nussmeier, but you're not going to get him down very much. But I think he's the highest riser at the quarterback position. And then if you're wanting the number one for me is Cam Ward. I think his arm talent's absurd. He can make absolutely every throw. If you watch some of the end zone views of throws, you'll see some of those crazy throws that Joe Flacco made for the Browns last year. He can fit it in any tight window. Again, another guy he's a gunslinger. So he's definitely going to throw some turnover-worthy plays. But if you're just looking for most upside, most overall talent, Cam Ward from Miami is number one for me.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. You can read him on the Orange and Brown Report. He also co-hosts the Barking Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, A video breakdown, film analysis, keys to beating the Ravens. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Time to take a video breakdown, film analysis of some keys to beating the Ravens coming up Sunday. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, tough assignment. Ravens playing, I know the record isn't as good as some, but they're playing pretty well, both sides of the football.
Well, offensively, I just broke down a couple films today, actually my final two films, and they're as good as anybody I've watched offensively right now. Derrick Henry's running at another level. Lamar Jackson, you want to make him throw from the pocket, but he's real good there too. He's the best player I've watched this year on film. That combination in the backfield is really, really good. Their front seven in the back is very good. They lost Queen, but they praised him with Pritchard. They're good in the secondary. A really good football team. For the Browns, it comes down to they have to eliminate all the noise. And the worst part about right now for the Browns coaches is that they're not talking football right now, which makes it really, really tough.
All right, three keys to beating the Ravens for the Browns on Sunday. Key number one, Browns front seven must read keys. So take us through this and kind of your thoughts with that one.
We're going to see a play called here called Crunch, where they're going to bring that big Ricard, their fullback, bring him down inside. And what this play does is Todd Monken is really, really good. In fact, Todd Monken is my favorite offensive coordinator in the NFL right now, and he did a really nice job last year against the Browns. And this is one of the things, this is a play he ran last year against the Browns, and this is the open 87-yard touchdown play against the Bills this year. And if you look at Ricard, number 42, he's actually going to block Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver is the one guy from the Bills that kind of reminds me of the Browns defensive line. And when you just get upfield and you don't get your hands on the guy in front of you as a defensive lineman, things like this happen. So you're going to see Ricard come to his left, you're going to see the right guard pull to his left, and you're going to see the left guard pull to his left. And as you watch this play, you watch it over and over, it's about the best running play that I've seen on film. The hours of film that I've watched this year, there's six guys in the box. They get a head on 6-on-6. The tight end, Andrews, gets to the safety. They leave the corner unblocked. This is as good as it gets in the run game. And what the Browns have to do is they have to get their hands on a little bit. Their aggression can hurt them, and this is what hurts the Bills on this play. This is a well-run play. This is called Crunch. This is to be a play that Todd Monken runs against the Browns this week. The Browns got to do a good job of penetrating, but we like to say get the heel step. So they got to get past the offense lineman and kind of wait there and not get trapped. So, again, Todd Monken does a really good job. This is one of their key plays. The Browns got to be really good, disciplined in the run game against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and a lot of people point to the last time that the Browns faced Derrick Henry when he was with the Titans, and they shut him down. This is not the Titans' offense, especially with Lamar Jackson playing at the level he is.
Well, yeah, so the thing that was really scary to me is that when you watch Lamar Jackson, so I've had the opportunity to break down about 10 games of Lamar Jackson the last couple of years, and what you really want to do against Lamar Jackson is you want to pick the thing he does just really good, because the other things he does great. And he has improved so much from the pocket with Todd Monken. His ability to throw from the pocket, I don't think Lamar Jackson gets enough credit for his ability to process information at a high level. He's throwing from the pocket as good as any pocket passer in the NFL right now. That's what he does the worst. And what he does really, really well is use his feet, both in the run game and extend plays in the pocket. So Lamar Jackson is playing at such a high level. Todd Monken gets so much credit, again, for what he's doing. Last year, the Browns were playing at a historic level, and Todd Monken kind of had his way with them early on. So this is a really tough matchup, not only because of where the Browns are at, but because of how Todd Monken likes to play things.
All right, second key of the three to the Browns trying to beat the Ravens coming up Sunday. Help on the tight ends, and now they have two of them, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. So take us through this one.
Well, you're going to see Lamar Jackson does what he does best. He drops back, and then he's going to extend the play, move to his right. Likely he's coming across and on an under route, and then turns it up, and then just makes a great play, great run after catch. And as you see this play, it kind of exemplifies what the Ravens do really well. They drop back, his footwork's really good, doesn't see anything, he's going to break out. And then Likely, who's on a crossing route, kind of turns up field, scramble rule. They're all on the same page, and him. Likely, obviously, the Browns have struggled with Andrews over the last couple of years, and I'm going to even throw their third down back, Justice Hill, in here. He's a really good guy as well. So not only are Lamar Jackson and Henry the focal point, they got Zay Flowers outside. They got a couple other receivers who are decent. Now they have two really good tight ends. So the Ravens, who have been really good, are now even better. And I think you said it best. They might be 5-2. For me, this is the best football team in the NFL right now. They're playing the best. And when the Browns are going to have to make plays early defensively because the Ravens are really, really good. And eventually they're going to make some plays. Lamar Jackson's going to make some plays. They got to find Likely. They got to help their safeties and linebackers on these tight ends. They're not good matchups for the Browns linebackers.
All right, the third one and the final key for the Browns to beat the Ravens Sunday. New play caller and QB, and you have an idea of something that should be a focus. So take us through this. It's Jameis Winston, Ken Dorsey. We've been talking about that the last few days. So take us through what this third key is.
Well, when you look at the Browns, this is what Flacco did last year really, really well. This is just a five-man. This is a three-man out with both tight end and the tailback, chipping on the defensive ends, helping those tackles. Because remember, last year the Browns had a ton of issues. And right now he's got to check it down, and he's got to get the ball to Njoku. So the first play you're going to see here, you're going to see Njoku. He's going to chip on the end, sit down in the hole, and Flacco gets it right to him. He's so good run after catch. Then after they get the ball to Flacco, they can use Njoku as a decoy. So next, Njoku's going to come in motion. They're going to focus. You're going to see double coverage right there, and that leaves Elijah Moore one-on-one with the safety. The Browns, what Kevin Stefanski likes to do, and he'll still have a ton of input even though Dorsey's catching the ball, they've got to get the ball out of Jameis's hands fast. They got to get the ball to Njoku. Obviously, their two best players on offense, without question, are Njoku and Chubb. And Chubb coming off injury, he's still a question. He's still got some work to do to get back. So their best player on offense right now is David Njoku, and it's not real close. So they got to get him the ball. Got to get him the ball early. That'll get him into rhythm. That'll get Jameis Winston into rhythm. That'll get the run game going. Njoku will take double coverage, get other guys going. They have to kind of eliminate the noise, figure out a way to attack the safety. And I think as good as Kyle Hamilton is at safety, he's better against the run than he is in coverage. And Njoku can beat him in coverage. So, again, I think the Browns got to get the ball to Jameis's hands, and they got to get the ball to Njoku.
You know, it's kind of interesting that you do the play calling change in conjunction with the new quarterback. In some ways, I think if you had Stefanski and Dorsey kind of both in the quarterback's ear, that seems like it's too much to me. I think you want one guy.
Well, the thing that was surprising for me is that Watson is kind of more what Dorsey's done well with his time in Buffalo with Josh Allen, the movement skills, the pre-snap motion. Winston is more of a Stefanski guy. Play action. They'll run the boot. They'll run that inside, weak outside zone with the boot and waggle off it away with the levels concept. The empty personnel is out of the empty formations out of big personnel. Excuse me. It's shocking because I think Winston kind of gives Stefanski what he wants. This tells me there's some dissension and some issues right now with who's calling play. Whatever the continuity they had from the ownership to the general manager to the coach, that's kind of gone right now. And that's what losing does to you. Losing makes you panic. Losing makes you do things that you might not do. When they say winning solves everything, it does. And I argue with people all the time. You win, these small issues go away. I'll be interested to see how Dorsey does with Jameis Winston because it's not his style of quarterback. So we'll see what happens. Obviously a spark maybe, but the Browns are going to have to play really good defense to have a chance, even a chance in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the other thing could be it could be as simple as they haven't cleaned up the penalties. I mean, you need that kind of screams who's in the league. Who is going to make sure we don't hurt ourselves.
Yeah, and my counterpoint to that would be is that Kevin Stefanski has done this for years with different people, different offensive linemen. They've been injury prone for a number of years now, and they've had to play so many different guys. So this idea of that the offensive the pre-snap penalties, I agree with you. They have to clean those up. But as a play caller, and Kevin Stefanski is got the job in Cleveland because of his ability to call plays in his style of offense. They're making Kevin Stefanski call plays, maybe not his style of offense. So I don't think this is a Kevin Stefanski decision, if you ask my true opinion. However, I think Kevin Stefanski wants to win more than anything else, and I think he'll do whatever he has to do to win. If he thinks it's a spark with Dorsey calling plays, then he'll do it. But I don't think the penalties and stuff have anything to do with him calling plays. I think it deals with the idea they have new coaches on the offensive side of the ball, new philosophy, attention to detail has gone away. Those pre-snap motion, those are position coach issues, in my opinion. You got to have your guys ready to go, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing is, though, you want somebody whose attention isn't divided to play calling to be going and kind of coordinating everything, and I think that might be what they were getting at. Again, the timing of it's just bizarre. Lance Reisland, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
As always, thank you so much.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good film breakdown, video analysis for cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Playing Dealer. We're step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, more Browns. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Kevin Stefanski gave up play calling to Ken Dorsey, and ironically, we're changing quarterbacks this week because of Deshaun's injury. So you have a spread offensive coordinator that you bring in for Deshaun Watson, but Kevin's calling the plays. So now that the spread quarterback is injured and the quarterback that's taking his place in Jameis Winston is a play-action, drop-back, pocket-passing quarterback that throws the ball down the field, and Kevin gives the play calling to a spread offensive coordinator, that sounds like to me that Jimmy Haslam does not want to take a chance on Jameis Winston looking better than Deshaun Watson. And it just seems like that every move that they're making is trying to justify the trade and put the blame on somebody else.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Xavier Crocker, Chef Zay, CrocPot podcast, as well as a writer for CrocPotCLE.com. There's two things, and let me run this by you, Chef Zay. So if they would have left Kevin Stefanski calling plays and Jameis Winston is successful, then you've had Kevin Stefanski calling plays for Baker Mayfield, who's been successful for, to a certain extent, Deshaun Watson before he got hurt, Joe Flacco. The only difference there would have been Deshaun Watson. By switching up the play calling, it could be that they're, I mean, if Winston goes out and plays well, now it can be, well, Dorsey knew the offense. Whereas before, the only difference was going to be that it was Jameis Winston playing quarterback.
I mean, I kind of get the last point that the caller made there, where it does kind of just feel like it feels like a scapegoat is being set up to play. it does seem kind of weird that you would give up the play calling now when the season's basically over. I mean, you're 1-6 right now. It's not like you're trying to save grace or anything. And like you said, we've seen Kevin Stefanski get the most out of Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett, PJ Walker, DTR, Watson. Watson being the lone guy he didn't get the most out of. This would seem like it's right in Kevin Stefanski's wheelhouse. So I definitely find it a little bit weird in this whole situation. But we got to take the jabs how we come, because now we're getting rumors that players don't even like Jameis. So this week will be a big tell.
Yeah, and again, this is what happens when you're 1-6. This is we know that this is what happens when you don't win football games. So we mentioned Jameis Winston will get the start at quarterback. Mike Florio on what he sees with Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston at his very best is a great NFL starter. The problem is there are too many moments where he's not at his very best. He is a guy, and there are several quarterbacks that fall into this category: Will Levis, Carson Wentz, guys whose reach exceeds their grasp, guys who try to do things that they're not physically capable of doing. And haven't we all been there at some point? I know I've been there, where you get a little caught up in the moment and you think you can do more than what your God-given ability would otherwise dictate, and that leads to something screwy. That leads to throwing the ball left-handed while you're in the end zone, a la Carson Wentz. It leads to all the turnovers we've seen from Will Levis. That's going to be the challenge for Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, to get Jameis Winston to just stay within himself. Can't be much worse than it was under Deshaun Watson, who was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL before his torn Achilles tendon from last week.
Jose, the other thing I would say is that's kind of what Kevin Stefanski does. If you think about it, he's really good at minimizing guys putting the ball in harm's way.
And the one thing that you can't call with Jameis Winston, he's a wild card, and maybe that's what they're scared of. Again, I don't understand the whole reasoning of why they are moving the way that they're moving, other than the fact that we've seen this song before, we've heard this song before. I mean, this is nothing new to us. We know the firings are upon us. It's just a matter of when, how, where, and when, essentially. So I think this is it's a perfect opportunity to get a feel for where this team is, moving forward, because there's still 10 weeks left of football. If you come out, I repeat it every single week, the defense has yet to given up on us, despite what the box score may say. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to Jameis Winston behind quarterback, especially after giving DTR the nod, which was weird to me also, because Jameis Winston was supposedly the backup all year, all offseason, all this stuff. So I'm excited to see how this response is from the team.
Yeah, the other thing, I don't think it was Kevin Stefanski's call. And again, this is not sourced. My gut feeling is he was told to give up play calling by either Andrew Berry, Jimmy Haslam, somebody, because I don't think he was letting that go without being told you better do that.
And this goes back to the terrible signing as far as the extension goes. I talked about this on my podcast before the Houston Texans game with John Tellich, and we talked about and debated about if you extend Kevin Stefanski if they lose this game. And I think they put themselves in a really sticky situation, because you didn't bring Kevin Stefanski in here to just be the head coach with the tangibles like Mike Tomlin has, or like a Harbaugh has, or one of these other coaches that is not calling the plays or being involved on the defensive side of the ball. They brought Kevin Stefanski in here because of his offensive mind and because he was so good at the play calling. So now that he gives that up, I sit here and it's just like, well, what exactly is he going to thrive at? Because we already know he's not the rah-rah guy. We know he's not going to galvanize people as far as making players want to run through a wall for you. So it's if the Ken Dorsey thing doesn't work out, he'll probably be the first one to go, but then Stefanski will be next. I don't know how they turn this ship around, because it pretty much seems like one foot's already out the door for Stefanski.
Yeah, and so the other thing that, as I go back, was Ken Dorsey, and not necessarily Ken Dorsey, was the change to a spread offense kind of crammed and forced on Kevin Stefanski? That's the bigger question. because that's not in
right?
his wheelhouse.
It's not his wheelhouse, and we know he loves his tight ends. We've seen how much he utilized Harrison Bryant and all of these guys, and they did go away from that stuff. A lot of this stuff feels like like you said, there's no source. I have no sources to this, but it just feels like Jimmy Haslam is playing the business game more than he's playing the in the business to win game right now. And I'm not saying Jimmy Haslam doesn't want to go out there and win. You don't give a quarterback $230 million guaranteed if you don't want to go out there and win. But it just seems like his intentions are a lot of business right now. The PR nightmares that surrounded this team. I talked about this on a video I just made. The biggest ball that this team may have dropped, you can throw it up there with the Baker Mayfield thing. You can throw it up there with the contract situation, was deciding to not bring Joe Flacco back, because if we would have brought Joe Flacco back, we're not sitting here at 1-6.
Well, if you kept playing Deshaun Watson, you probably are, and you're still probably, and you're probably even more divided in the fan base than you were. But as somebody nationally said, we're paying you the money to deal with that, with Joe Flacco versus Deshaun Watson. So I get it. Here's another reinforcement of just how bad it is offensively. This is from Daryl Ryder. Browns offense ranks 32nd in yards per play, passing yards per play, sacks, third down efficiency, tied for 31st in first downs, 30th in passing, 29th in scoring per game, tied for 28th in rushing, and tied for 20th in rushing yards per attempt this season. And those 30 seconds, those are last in the league. So they're at or near the bottom in pretty much everything offensively. And that the defense has been okay. They've been pretty good considering how bad the offense has put them in spots.
Looking at those numbers, it reminds me of our defense when Joe Woods was running it. We were pretty much dead last in every single category. And what did we always point the finger to when we talked about Joe Woods? It was the effort. The effort on the offense has just been pretty bad, from the quarterback position all the way down to the receiver, to the running back room, to the offensive line. It shows flashes of giving up. And that's why I say, the defense gets a lot of slack, or gets a lot of hate right now because of the points that they give up. And you're asking the defense to for them to have a tall task by putting them behind the 8 ball every single drive when you go 3 and out, and you're on the field for a minute and a half at a time. Like, eventually that bend don't break defense is going to break. There's just too much tension on it. So I every week, the one thing that I'm watching for is to see how this defense responds in the first quarter, because that lets me know if they've still given up or not. And every single week, man, they've coming out. If they've given us an opportunity in this offense to go out there and move the ball, and we've done nothing with it. So I can't fault them at that when it comes third and fourth quarter, and we've gotten 8, 9, 10, third or 3 and outs or whatever, and you're not putting up any points. So that's where I'm at with it. I'll be watching again this week for the first quarter to see up against this high-powered Ravens offense, because the defense is going to get their test this week. That's for sure.
Oh, without question. Along those lines, NFL Week 8 preview from ESPN.com. Ravens storylines to watch. Derrick Henry, NFL's leading rusher, goes against Browns defense that has not allowed a running back to gain more than 67 yards this season. Man, I'm reading that now. That shocks me. Henry has been on a tear, 873 yards rushing, which is the most in his first 7 games of a season over his 9-year career. And then Browns storyline to watch. Jameis Winston taking over a quarterback for the Browns, place of Deshaun Watson. Change should lead to a more aggressive passing attack. Watson's 6.9 air yards per attempt ranked 23rd. Winston's averaged 10.1 air yards per attempt in his career. That could get the ball downfield and get them some explosives. Relative to Derrick Henry, when I think about the Browns' rushing attack, I think the Ravens and teams that have kind of gashed them with guys that are just kind of average NFL guys. So Derrick Henry scares the life out of me.
I've never been more scared of Derrick Henry than I have this year. We tend to play Derrick Henry really well. I actually looked at the stats in the 5 games that we played him. He's only gone off on his 1 game, and that was that home opener game where he peeled off a reception for 75 yards, and I think he had 80 yards on the ground. But other than that, we've contained Derrick Henry throughout his career. Now it scares me because this offense and this team that they're going up against is nothing to be played with right now. Lamar Jackson is pretty much in stride for his third consecutive MVP, and I mean, they're rolling. Mark Andrews just finally getting back into the offense. Zay Flowers is getting back into the offense. And if you do stop Derrick Henry in these first couple quarters, like I just talked about how this defense comes out and starts out, okay, Lamar Jackson may be able to carve you up. And then guess what? The third, fourth quarter comes and they have a lead. And then he's gonna end up being Derrick Henry. So this is gonna be interesting to see. This is the real test to see how good our defense really is, because like I said, when you can't keep the offense on the field, the defense is going to pay for it. And with Jameis Winston coming out on the field, you know, he's going to throw the ball, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities for our offense to be on the field. So I'm excited for this Derrick Henry matchup, just for the simple fact that Cleveland always finds a way to play him well.
Yeah, I expect Jameis Winston to throw the ball downfield. I would think they score more than 20 points just because he's going to take some chances. I also think he's probably going to turn the ball over once or twice, throwing the ball, because he'll put it in harm's way. But I think you're going to see some big plays that are made offensively.
Another test we'll see on how bad Watson really was, right? You know, everybody was calling for DTR and everybody was calling for Jameis Winston. And, you know, we got to see a glimpse of both of them last week. And DTR threw just as many balls in the dirt as Deshaun Watson did in his first drive when he came onto the field. So it's not like this offense was much different with these quarterbacks behind. Your offensive line is still abysmal. You saw the stats Darrell Ryder reeled off when you're 32 in yards per play, passing and sacks, third down efficiencies when you're last and everything. It's going to be hard no matter who's at quarterback. I don't care if Tom Brady's back there. So Jameis Winston will have a tall task, but if anybody can put on a show for us, it's definitely Jameis Winston. So I'm excited to see if we can get a W this week.
Chef Zay, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Happy Friday, guys. Have a good weekend.
You too. Xavier Crockett, Chef Zay, checking out the CrocPot podcast. He also writes for CrocPotCLE.com. We're this episode take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavs. Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter. Cavs getting ready for the home opener. JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons in town. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones. Diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready for the home opener against the Pistons tonight. Brian Windhorst, ESPN's national NBA reporter, on what he saw in the Cavs' first game under Kenny Atkinson.
He definitely showed this is the type of game he wants to play. One, he wants to play up-tempo. He wants higher possessions. He wants higher score. Honestly, I got to go look. I don't know how many times the Cavs in regulation breached 130 last year. I'm sure it was in the single digits. I'm sure it was. Was it 2? See, you know. So really right out of the gate, that's a Kenny Atkinson result. Kenny Atkinson wants to play up-tempo. He wants the more possession game. But ultimately, Kenny is going to be judged on how he can unlock Mobley. And it's, you know, he can put the game plan in. If Mobley doesn't, go to it, it doesn't matter. You know, this is what I really wanted last year. I wanted the coach and Mobley to be in alignment. And like at this point last year, I was starting to give the side eye to you, Chris. I was starting to go, I don't see it. Well, now you see it, and you see the way Evan is playing. There's alignment.
With that, let's welcome in Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ethan, I know you wrote an article about the potential breakout season of Evan Mobley, and I know it's one game, but you saw some things from Evan Mobley that you have wanted to see for a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and this is just the beginning, right? This is a guy who has been working tirelessly during the offseason on his three-point shot, on his handle, trying to get to the point where he feels comfortable in every aspect of his game to take it to the next level. We're going to see his usage rate go up exponentially this season from what it had been. And then you're going to get to see the pairing of Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell as well, something we saw in the season opener in Toronto, where they got to be matched up and paired together, something that didn't happen that often in JB Bickerstaff's offense last season. This year, you're going to see it a little bit more, especially when we talk about Donovan being able to speak life and make Evan Mobley be aggressive, not only with his passing, but the opportunities that he creates because of how much gravity Donovan Mitchell brings to him from the opposing defense.
All right, another article you wrote, 3 things to watch Kenny Atkinson's revamped offense. Number 1, revving up the offense, shifting into high gear with Atkinson's 3-speed approach. Number 2, 3-point barrage, more attempts, more confidence. And number 3, big men as offensive hubs, Mobley and Allen dynamic. Take us through those and what you think about those moving forward.
Yeah, revving up the offense, right? They want to go pace, pace, pace. But I say that to say there's a 3-speed offense that Kenny Atkinson wants to run, right? He's going to do what he calls Autobahn, where they're going at breakneck speed, going down the floor, not stopping for anybody, and using outlet passes and pass aheads to create open opportunities in transition, in the fast break, something that JB Bickerstaff wanted to do last year, but he was more so asking Darius and Donovan to run the ball up the floor. Obviously, the pass is going to create more opportunities, and instead of running in the Mack truck lane where there's lanes throughout the court, they're going to use the corners and the spacing that's created through that to get open opportunities and also easy shots early on into the shot clock. But then we talk about the 3-point barrage, which kind of goes right into that. Darius Garland has been asked to get his 3-point shot from 6 last year up to 8 or 9. Then you got Donovan Mitchell, who's already in double digits for 3-point attempts per game. And then you're going to see an increase of Evan Mobley, right? These guys have been sharp shooters, and Evan Mobley is trying to join them. Then you got Sam Merrill and obviously Max Strus, who's been out and is going to be out for the first 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Those 2 guys are also going to play a large part in that 3-point barrage as well. And then we get into the third part, the big men unit, right? Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they are no longer going to be sitting just solely in the dunker spot. They are going to be used as pace setters in the offense. We saw it in the season opener, Evan Mobley taking the ball up the court, going coast to coast. Jared Allen setting screens, but also having screens set for him to begin actions for other players off the ball and get other players open as well. He's a big body, and he has the ability to facilitate. So both of those players are going to be used in different roles this year than we have seen before. And that's not just the big men. We're talking about Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, also turning into screeners rather than just people coming off of screens and being used in that nature.
So you were out at shoot around as the Cavs get ready for the home opener against JB Bickerstaff, former head coach, and the Detroit Pistons, who he now is the head coach of. What did you learn from shoot around, and what kind of reception do the players think JB Bickerstaff should get from the fans?
Well, first off about the reception, right? Jared Allen talked to the media after their shoot around saying that JB Bickerstaff did a lot for this organization, talking about the 99 wins over 2 seasons, talking about how they were able to get to the postseason for the first time without LeBron James in over 30 years, and just the aura and the culture that he brought to this organization is something that none of the players take for granted. And Jared Allen said there might be a little more oomph in this game because, to be fair, the reason you get rid of a head coach is because you think that there is room to grow and improve. And he and the other Cavaliers want to show that to JB Bickerstaff. And he hopes that JB Bickerstaff comes with another little bit of oomph too, to make this a competition tonight with the Pistons versus the Cavs. But also, we got to talk to Ty Jerome as well. And we talked about that 3-speed offense. We talked about the pace a little bit earlier. Ty Jerome says that he thinks that this Cavs team could be impossible to beat if they can play controlled pace, right? That means getting to their spots, getting open shots, and playing their game. The 3 speeds that we talked about a little bit earlier. The 2 things that I noticed from just watching shoot around that I wanted to take away was that Evan Mobley and Darius Garland were not only going through Darius Garland's post-practice three-point regimen, but they were also working on pick and pops for Evan Mobley behind the arc, something that we're going to want to see a lot more of this season. And Isaac Okoro went through his own three-point workout, but it was really, really strict, right? It was you have to be at each spot, make 5 3-pointers in a row, all swishes before being able to make and move to the next spot. It was really interesting to see, especially when you think about how hard these trainers were pushing him. Anything that touched the rim, start over.
All right, before I let you go, I know you wrote a preview of the season, defining season for the Cavs, you called it. You predict 51-31 in a second place finish in the Eastern Conference. I've seen others do that. I think The Athletic also had them second behind the Celtics. What do you like about this? What do you think is going to happen? Why are you so optimistic about this season for the Cavs?
The continuity speaks for itself, right? This is a team that is bringing back 13 of the 14 players that they had last season. This is a group that enjoys playing with each other, and with this new offense, along with understanding that the identity of this team will always and still is defense, that creating defense to offense is going to be a powerful weapon for this team. The other reason I had this team a lot higher than some other people might have was because of the injuries that other teams are dealing with to start the season. Obviously, Max Strus is out for the Cavs. That is a blow, but I believe that Dean Wade is going to be able to fill that role and be able to fill in and do things that even Max Strus wasn't able to on the defensive end when it comes to guarding bigger players and switching 1 through 5. But talking about the other teams, the Knicks, they're dealing with injuries that are significant. Precious, Mitchell Robinson. Then you look at the 76ers. They're without their 2 best players in Joel Embiid and Paul George. Paul George being a big signing this offseason. And it's just looking at the top contenders in the Eastern Conference and how they're going to try and have their best players ready for the playoffs rather than focusing on regular season wins. I think the Cavs are going to be able to get used to this new offense and get after it quicker than some of these other teams that are reeling when it comes to the injuries and when it comes to getting acclimated in new systems.
Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ethan.
Thank you, sir.
Ethan Sands, make sure you check him out. Really good Cavs coverage for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.